Hello, this is a follow-up to my Dungeons and Dragons character creator project. This video, I'm mainly going to be focusing on a few of the gray areas I had in my project, which is mostly about async promises and the fetch request in JavaScript's API. So up here, I want to read the quick notes I had wrote down while I was refactoring. So whenever JavaScript uses fetch in order to pull data from an external API, it makes what is called a promise, which is what represents the state of completion or failure within an asynchronous operation. And this is really cool because JavaScript is a synchronous language, which means whenever you're running your code, it's only reading one line at a time. So whenever you have multiple blocks of code, you want to be able to run at the same time. Or at least have while JavaScript continues running, you want to be using an asynchronous function. And every asynchronous function returns a promise. and basically what the fetch request is, it's an asynchronous function that's native to JavaScript's web API, and it returns data in the form of a promise. The fetch has two objects, the response and the request. The fetch uses the response object, which holds the data returned from the API you're calling, then sends a request which returns a promise. When that request is complete, it's resolved to the response object. If the request fails, the promise is rejected. And to briefly go over my refactoring, most of my functions, I had logic contained in the fetch request. I mitigated that by just making each fetch request have a callback function with the data passes an argument into a function that's handling all the logic. The only one that's not doing that would be this delete character. The only thing I had refactored about this is I had moved it separate from my fetch, which for some reason I had put it as a request into my delete function. So right here, I have my fetch character data, which is just taking a callback function that's having the data pass an argument. And down here, the set new character data and the send new character data. This is for whenever you're creating your character, all the values within the DOM are being passed in as arguments, turned into an object, and this is taking that object and sending all that data to my JSON server. And down here, we have my description functions. These were all just 3 functions handling both the fetch request and the logic. But for each one, I separated them. All the fetch functions just have the fetch request with the function returning all the data into its own function that handles the logic, just like I did with every single other async function. And yeah, that's just about it. It was just having to do a little bit more research on async functions and promises, but I was able to make my code a lot more readable and usable.